guys, it's Tori, and today I'm going to be doing my 2020 reading goals. This is the video I've been most excited to make. I don't know, while I love talking about my favorite books of the year, I just love looking at the future and what my goals are, and I'm extra excited about this year because if you don't know, Lucy over at Lucy the Reader is hosting a year-long reading challenge entitled Classics Community, where essentially you just make your own goal to read more classics, whatever that may be. You can have like a specific type of classic that you want to read more. You could have a number for how many classics you want to read. Whatever you want to do, there's hashtag classics community that you can use in social media posts and on videos. She's also encouraging people who would like to start a booktube channel talking about classics to do so, so we can build our community a little bit more, and I just am so excited. For my part, I am planning to read 25 classics in the year 2020. That's a little less than half of my Goodreads challenge, which I'm going to set at 60 books for the year of 2020. This year I read, by the end, I hopefully will be able to have read 89. I'm filming this a few days early. A huge chunk of those were for school, but I won't have English classes anymore because I'm changing my major, so I'll be mostly just reading on my own. I won't have school to help boost that number as much. But that being said, I may end up being able to read more on my own. I don't know what's going to happen, but I feel like 60 is a good number that will challenge me but not make me feel overwhelmed. If I read more than that, awesome. I counted up how many classics I read on my own, not for school, this year, and I read 18, I believe was the number. 18 or 19. So this will be like 6 more classics than I read in 2019. So I feel like 25 is a good number for me at this point in my life. So I'm going to talk about 20 classics that I hope to read in 2020. I have 3 other goals that I'll mention after I go through those 20 books. In those 3 goals, there's 5 other classics that I'm planning to read for those goals, so I'm also counting those for this goal, if that makes sense, but I'm not going to mention them until I mention those other goals. You'll see what I mean. Basically, by the end of this video, there will be 25 classics that I'll mention. Some of them will just be for other goals as well. So let's just get into those 20 books. I'm not going to go into too much detail because that's a lot of books to talk about. And honestly, a lot of them I don't really know the synopses of them very much. I don't always remember super well what people have said about them, so I just kind of know that they sound interesting and that's about it. Anyway, let's just get into this. So first of all, I have here the Hunchback of Notre Dame. As you can see, I've kind of started this a little bit, but I'm definitely not going to finish it by the end of the year because I'm doing the magical readathon, and so I'm reading other books for that, but I'm hoping to come back to this once I'm done with those other things, and yeah, so this will definitely be on that list. The Adventures of Tom Bombadil by J.R.R. Tolkien. This takes place in Middle-earth. If you've read the Lord of the Rings series, you know that in the first book there's a man named Tom Bombadil. A lot of people, I think, find his part boring and don't really know what to make of him. Personally, I listened to the audiobook and I think that was a good choice in falling in love with Tom Bombadil because I love his character. I think he's so funny. He's just this old man that goes wandering through the woods just singing away and just making friends with the animals and whatever, and he's older than Middle-earth itself, and like all through like at least the first book, I think the other 2 have some mentions of him too, but people are just like, oh, Tom, and you're like, who is this guy? Like, he's just such an enigma, and I loved him so much, and I really wanted a book about him, and I found one, so I think I just need to read it ASAP. Plus, it's like a little tiny book anyway, so I think it's going to be an easy read through. Next, I have Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. I have made a goal to try to read at least one Jane Austen a year until I read through them all, and Sense and Sensibility is the one I have chosen for 2020. A Lady of Quality by Frances Hodgson Burnett. Frances Hodgson Burnett wrote The Secret Garden and A Little Princess. Both are very popular, and I recently discovered this one in a used bookstore, and I had never heard of it, and I didn't love The Secret Garden as much, but I really liked A Little Princess, and I was just like, wow, this seems more like an adult novel by this author, and since those other 2 are children's novels, I'm interested to see how this one goes. It's also a historical fiction set, I think, in the 1600s, 1690, so that should be a very interesting read. Next, I have The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins, which is an author I recently read The Woman in White by and absolutely loved it, so I wanted to pick up another one of his books. Our Mutual Friend by Charles Dickens, which I have also made it a goal to read at least one Charles Dickens a year until I get through them all. I may also read A Tale of Two Cities, as that one's a little shorter, but this is one that has definitely grasped my attention. Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury. This is another one with an author that I really want to read more by, and he mostly writes science fiction. He wrote Fahrenheit 451, if you've read that, as well as The Martian Chronicles, which is my personal favorite of the two I've read. I just want to read more by him, so this is going to be my next work by him. Technically, this is two books but bound into one, but I'm just going to count it as one, and that is A Study in Scarlet and the Sign of Four by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. This is the first and second novels in the Sherlock Holmes series, and I really want to get started on this series. Howard's End by EM Forster. I've heard amazing things about this. I also recently watched the BBC adaptation and really enjoyed it, so I'm excited to pick this up and see my feelings on it. I also haven't read a ton of Edwardian fiction, so I'm interested to see what my thoughts are on this. North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. It's just about freaking time I read an Elizabeth Gaskell. I've heard so many good things about her. This tends to be most people's favorites, and also people have said it's a good place to start with her, so I'm going to start with her here. The Odd Women by George Gissing. I've heard George Gissing compared to Thomas Hardy, and of course that just automatically makes me want to read his work. Plus, this one follows women during a time when there's more, sorry about that glow, where there's more women than men in London, and so a lot of women who are taught to get married aren't able to, and some of the dynamics of that, and I'm very interested in that sort of a story. Next, I have two books by Thomas Hardy because I just can't help myself, and I know I can't, so I may as well just automatically put more than one on this list because I know I'll read more than one. But that is Desperate Remedies by Thomas Hardy, which was his first novel. This one is definitely a much more plot-driven novel, and it sounds really fun and interesting. I also have a Laodicean, which apparently is also a very plot-driven novel, even though based on the synopses I've read, it seemed like more of a character-driven novel, but according to some people, it's not. It's more of a plot-driven, but I still am interested in picking it up. We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. I recently fell in love with Shirley Jackson's writing as I read The Lottery, a short story by her, and I've been dying to pick up more by her. This is technically a combination of two novellas, but I'll probably just read the whole thing, and that is The Turn of the Screw and Daisy Miller by Henry James. I've just had this for a while and I need to pick it up. Plus, I recently watched an adaptation of The Turn of the Screw, and I feel like it might not have been completely true to the story just because of the time period it was written in and the way things went down in the show, so I'm very curious to see how it actually goes down in the book. Next, I have a Scottish classic, which I'm excited to pick up, and that is Waverly by Sir Walter Scott. I haven't read any Sir Walter Scott, and I'm interested. Plus, this is one of the first historical fictions, and it takes place during the Jacobite. I always confuse Jacobite from Scotland and then the Jacobins from France. But Jacobite revolution in Scotland during the 1700s, which is a time period I'm fascinated by. So excited to pick this up. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. It's about dang time I picked this up because it's Frankenstein. The Way We Live Now by Anthony Trollope. This is one I just, again, want to get into Anthony Trollope's writing, and I feel like, and I've heard this is a good place to start, even though this book is massive and a little intimidating. The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton. I've had this book for too long and I just need to dang read it. And last but certainly not least, we have The Voyage Out by Virginia Woolf, another author I just really want to get into, and this is the one I own by her, so it's the one I'm gonna read. Okay, so that is my classics goal. The next goal is a goal I've had actually for the past couple of years, where I want to read at least one like huge over 1,000-page classic a year. So I have read War and Peace in 2018, and then 2019 I did Les Miserables. So the book I chose for this year is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. I just have heard amazing things about this book, and I have this beautiful edition, and it's just time I freaking pick it up. I'm really excited to read this. I'll probably read it in the summer is when I've been reading these large classics just because I have more time to focus on them. My next goal is to reread 4 books this year, so I enjoy rereading, but I always struggle to get myself to do it just because there's so many books I haven't read yet that I want to get to. But I decided to make it a goal to every 3 months this year reread at least 1 book. I may reread more than this, that's fine. This also won't include my Harry Potter reread that is bound to happen because I feel like my rereading of Harry Potter is usually just like a coping mechanism more than like purposely wanting to reread Harry Potter, if that makes sense. Like it's a comfort to me when I'm stressed at school and stuff, so I just re-listen to Harry Potter on the audiobook. Anyway, I have 4 books that I want to reread this year. First of all, I have Inkheart by Cornelia Funke. This is a middle grade that follows a girl whose dad is able to read things out of books. They're usually inanimate objects, but one day he ends up reading real life characters out of the book, and chaos ensues from there. I love this series so much. I read it in 6th grade, I want to say, and maybe like 6th and 7th, and I absolutely loved it then, and I'm very interested to see my feelings now. I think I'll still love it just from the nostalgia, but I'm excited to finally pick this back up because it's been about 10 years or a little more than 10 years since I read them. So next I have another middle grade series that I absolutely loved, and it's just time I reread them because it's been about 10 years, and that is Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. Oh, I guess this one's, oh no, it's the right one. Okay. And the Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. I read these in 7th grade, loved them so much, and never reread them. I think I reread this one once, but that was a very long time ago, and I'm just very curious to see, like, I feel like there's a lot I've forgotten about this series, to be honest. So next I have kind of the inspiration for this reading goal, as well as a book that actually just came out in 2018, and I read it in 2018, but I just want to reread it because of a reason I'll explain in a second, and that is Circe by Madeline Miller. I actually, for school this year, read The Odyssey, and so I want to revisit this just because now I know the story of The Odyssey, which I didn't when I originally read this, and so I really want to see how it holds up with having a more formed knowledge of the original story, and I'm excited to repick this up because it was my favorite book of 2018. And last, I do have a classic I want to reread this year, and it will be probably my first reread for the year, and that is Emma by Jane Austen. A movie adaptation of this is coming out in February, and so my roommates and I decided we would like to read it before it comes out, so I ended up being like, well, perfect, I have a reading goal to reread. This will be just one of those books. So anyway, excited to pick this back up because I love Emma a lot. And my 4th and final goal of the year is to read at least 3 plays by William Shakespeare this year. I have read 7 total at this point in my life, and while that's more than some people have, it's not even close to a fourth of what Shakespeare wrote. So I'd like to start making my way more through Shakespeare. This is my beautiful, complete William Shakespeare. The plays I'm hoping to read that are most grabbing my attention right now, at least, are King Lear, A Midsummer's Night's Dream, and Julius Caesar. I may also want to throw in like a more comedic play in there. If I do, I'll probably end up doing Much Ado About Nothing. Again, this list and my list of classics are not set in stone. Because I'm such a mood reader, my rereads and my long classic are definitely more set in stone, but these 2 lists of my Shakespeare and my classics are just, it will be based on my mood. Plus, I should mention my list of classics only included ones I currently own, and since I'll probably buy more, that may influence what I actually end up reading. Anyway, yes, I love William Shakespeare and I'm excited to read more of his plays. In fact, let me know down below if you have a favorite Shakespeare play, and I'll try to make an effort to find a time to read it at some point in the near future, hopefully. Near future meaning the next couple of years, because again, those 3 plays are kind of the ones that are drawing my attention most. So that is it. Those are my goals for 2020. Let me know down below if you're interested in joining the classics community, as I would love to know. I think it's so fun. I will also link Lucy's announcement video down below if you're interested in watching that, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!